Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I am Bolton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Man. Sorry about the delays, folks. There were personal issues that needed to be dealt with.
Yeah, my personal health issues, just to make things clear. But that's all taken care of now, and we're ready to get back to it. And today we're going to talk about the masculinity in gaming video that's been circulating around the internet. And it's actually become quite a hot topic. People have been agreeing, disagreeing. Personally, I agree with it because we could just look at some of the slop that's come out of the gaming industry recently, and yeah, it's decidedly less masculine.
Honestly, even if masculinity wasn't your focus, you can at least see a level of anti-meritocracy at play here. Because games from 20 years ago have a superior art style to games being produced today. That's not the right way around. It's in the same vein as you know 20 years ago there was Glen Arakami's Teen Titans. In the modern age, we have Teen Titans Go. This is not the way that progress is supposed to happen, if you believe it is supposed to happen in the first place.
Not only that, but you could definitely see a particular ideology has infested itself in the gaming industry. What with every video game now that allows you to create your own character, having reduced male and female to body types A and B.
Yeah, as I mentioned to E before we came on, it's odd, but 10 years later, 10 years post Gamergate, and the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah. So let's get into the video. See what this is
Yep.
about.
Does anybody else feel like masculinity has slowly been drained from modern video games? I was looking at recent staff photos of Ubisoft and Halo Infinite developers, and it's all starting to make sense. It's a bunch of fat white liberal women. And white.
I mean, he's not wrong.
In the broad sense, sure, but I will be slightly pedantic and say they're not liberals. They're neo-Hegelians of various different kinds. I
Toxic
think,
progressives.
yeah, I think a liberal would actually have a notion of individualism and meritocracy, and not treat meritocracy as if it's some fanciful thing like the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus. Whereas these people very
Well,
much do see meritocracy as the enemy, one, and two, a harmful delusion that must be broken out of to make people more free, quote unquote.
though, if you were to question these women, they would almost certainly say that they are liberals. They would identify themselves as
Yeah,
liberals.
in the American sense, yes. It's just being the philosophical pedant that I occasionally am. I'm not willing to wave the white flag and surrender the word liberal to them because words mean things. God damn it!
Just to expand this out to broader society, I have found that white liberal women are just the bane of civilization. Like
Yeah,
every side of the issue they take tends to be the self-interested and or one that leads to the degradation and destruction of society. Almost invariably, I have found.
yeah. There's the old chestnut about society growing great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. Well, I think the opposite of that is society crumbles into anarchy when young women burn forests down because they don't see the reason for there being so many trees.
I mean, there's a reason why J.D. Vance's childless cat lady's comment struck such a deep chord.
I watched that, and I was like keeping abreast of the reaction to that, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, whatever you may think of the way he phrased it, his statement was objectively correct. Like, we can demonstrate this. There are data, there are surveys and such of such people, and they definitely do essentially have a totalitarian grasp on every institution and corporation you care to name by virtue of HR departments, PR departments, and middle management. The only difference between the middle managers and the CEOs and stuff is CEOs are at least occasionally held accountable because they're the public face of the industry. The insidious thing about institutional capture is by being involved in companies and corporations and institutions at the middle management level, you can exert the exact same force or even more than a CEO. But when it comes time for someone's head to be on the chopping block, it's never you. And that's why it's so insidious.
All right, getting back to the video.
Yep.
Liberal women have no interest in masculine, manly, male characters. They wouldn't even know how to write one if they tried. This is why Rockstar, a company founded by men that at least in 2018 was still mostly run by men, created the magnum opus Red Dead Redemption 2, a game with a manly, well-written main protagonist, Arthur Morgan. If you want to see the seismic shift away from masculine characters, honestly, all you need to do is play a few games from 2006, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Consider how many masculine military games came out in the 2000s. Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, Brothers in Arms, Gears of War, Operation Flashpoint, Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell. All of these games were starring men and had themes like brotherhood, duty, sacrifice, honor. Almost all of these franchises have either been killed off, turned into multiplayer games, or went woke. I often
Yeah, there were really a lot of military shooters back in the day. I remember playing quite a few of those games. I never got into Splinter Cell. Wanted to, but just for some reason never got into it. But
Hmm.
yeah, there were a lot of uh, games that featured men, fighting against corruption, you know, serving honorably in the military, or just saving the world from bad guys and fighting against evil. And it really makes no uh, sense why those games have fallen off, because they are such universal themes that people can get behind.
And,
But
and it's
I think, hold on, I just think that this goes to something that when a lot of women came into these companies, they genuinely don't understand men or the way men think. And I feel like this is something like that can be understood. That we just take a look at broader society. There was actually a study that showed that a lot of men in their mind fantasize about being a hero and saving people, which is true. I mean, I sometimes daydream about this too, and women were freaking flabbergasted that men do this in their head. And I think that one of the reasons why is because they have essentially gaslit society and by extension themselves into believing that men are, manipulative, predatory, um, evil
debased.
creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when they learn that guys picture themselves as not hurting women but saving and protecting women, this just completely flabbergasts them.
And they usually recontextualize it as, oh, so you want me to be a passive object that you can save and then do with whatever you want, blah blah. It's also similar to the Roman Empire meme from a couple of months ago, where it's like women are apparently flabbergasted that men in general have a sort of informal deference for history, to the point that the average man off the street thinks of the Roman Empire and its travails at least once a week probably. um and they just don't understand the need for the larger grandiose narrative. And to that point, it's not just the military shooters or the military games. Even games with less, stereotypically masculine hoorah protagonists like Legend of Zelda or Mario are still about that sort of quasi chivalric nobility, like characters like Link and Mario demonstrate. And
Yeah, I would say
even,
especially with Link, because you're literally saving a princess from a dark lord.
well, and in Mario as well, it's usually the classic, like, literally medieval romantic save the princess from the tower trope. Um, and and apparently even that is a form of like misogyny because it's minimizing the woman's agency. Never mind that for the woman to have agency, she would actually have to try to get herself out of the tower and not be able to expect the men to come and save her. But ironically, indeed, for all of their protestations to the contrary, when men don't either explicitly or implicitly go to save women, you get the man versus bear meme because because what good is a man who doesn't serve the utilitarian function of being my enforcer, bodyguard, and appliance whenever I so need it, says most women apparently.
And just to speak on that, to further emphasize my point about women not understanding how men think, I used the podcast where women were asked our questions, and they were asked, "What percentage of men do you think would want to hurt you if they encountered you randomly in the woods?" I just answered, heard women answer somewhere around 50% sometimes. They think 50% of men would do them harm if they were right across them in the woods. That is absolutely insane. You'd have to be completely disconnected from reality and not have any understanding of your fellow human beings.
Or any understanding of evolutionary psychology, because exactly how the fuck would a social species like ours be able to survive in a world where 50% of men wanted to do harm to women, i.e., the people who carry the next generation of the species? Because,
If 50% of men wanted to do harm to every woman they came across, civilization would be impossible.
yeah, we would still be living in caves around campfires, essentially. Um, and yet we do not, in fact, live in caves around fires, even though our instincts sometimes think we do. We live in a exceedingly resource intensive, highly efficient structure of a civilization. But according to women, men had no role in creating that. It was all women's ways of knowing and emotional labor and shit that apparently led to the creation of the greatest civilizational enterprise on the face of the planet. Because they honestly, it seems, especially with the advent of feminism, only see men's either utility to them or the danger that they pose. They don't There is no middle pillar where they value men for their sentimental or interpersonal value. It's either a man is doing the function that I want him to do, or he is dangerous to me, and never the twain shall meet. I guess.
Yeah. All right.
I often wonder why so few modern games appeal to me. And I think another big reason is this: everything is just so gay now. Compare the games I just mentioned to the modern trash we have to deal with in Overwatch and Apex. Almost every character in these new games is either gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, or something else.
What do you think about that one? Because I am seeing a lot more characters being like made gay now. Like for example, Overwatch, like got like Soldier 76, who was this
Mm-hmm.
like stereotypical like super soldier kind of like army Captain America kind of guy. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like and Blizzard came out and said that he was gay, even though there's literally no story mode and therefore no reason to even reveal any of the character's sexuality. They just said, "Oh yeah, he's gay."
Well, okay. Here's the thing. I obviously am gay, and the issue here is I don't like this shit because it's terrible representation. We don't get gay characters who are competent. We don't get gay characters who have virtues. We don't get gay characters who have a sense of meritocracy about them. And it frankly enrages me that I am expected to empathize with these characters, even though they are, for the most part, flamboyant, effeminate, insufferable twinks. Because for some reason, that is what the apparently oh so focused on social justice bureaucracy that we live in now thinks gay people are by default. There are no tops, there are no masculine gay people, there are no people with any particular strength or skill or anything. It's just thousands upon thousands of big gay owls from South Park as far as the eye can see. And one, do you think you're doing the gay community any favors by essentially saying that that flamboyant, effeminate stereotype you have in your head, it's true and you're not allowed to criticize it at any point? Do you think you're doing me any favors when I say I'm gay and people immediately think, oh, so he's a flamboyant, insufferable, effeminate twink? Because it's not
I think
true.
one things that grinds people a little bit is, have you heard the statistic that the percentage of gay people in media uh, exceeds the percentage of gay people in real life?
Yes,
Yeah, so I
just
think
like
it's just I just think that's another thing that sometimes get people, because like they feel like it's constantly being put at them all the time. And it's not just like a, oh, this character just happens to be gay. It's always agenda pushing whenever they insert a gay character.
and that's the thing. If these gay characters were meritocratic, if they were likable, if they were interesting, if they were compelling, I don't I don't think that the average mass of people will mind, because I think that the average mass of people is more open-minded than people give it credit for, especially these hysterionic harpies who think we live in a post-apocalyptic nightmare as and when it's convenient for them. But again, it goes back to, this is yet another example of one of the most dangerous, insufferable, and stupid things about social justice, about neo-Hegelian ideologies, is this idea that meritocracy is just some normative delusion that we all agree on, and then there's no actual substance to any meritocratic claims. And the only thing that results from various minorities being represented in a institution that is explicitly anti-meritocracy is people assume by default eventually that if this kind of anti-meritocratic material is what represents these people, and if they're being represented accurately, then that means that anyone who isn't a white straight wasp male is an insufferable or evil bitch, because not only do they make these characters as anti-meritocratic as possible, much to my chagrin, they also frequently make them morally contrary to most people's presumptions on morality, and therefore conflate gay people and other minorities as not just anti-meritocratic and insufferable, but very often twisted and immoral, which is exactly the kind of propagandistic bullshit that we had to take like 50 to 60 years to finally get people out of the habit of, to finally get people to see beyond. Back when it was the tradcons in charge, that is explicitly what the tradcons told everyone that all these various minority groups are. And the only difference now between that and social justice is the social justice crowd and all their academic wisdom looked at those stereotypes and went, Chad, yes, and that's a good thing. And no, no, it isn't. It's not true, nor is it helpful. Fuck off.
To give a clear example of this in video games, let's take a look at some of the characters that were added as DLC to the god awful Suicide Squad game. First, you have
Uh,
an alternate you have an alternate universe gay Joker, which I don't think anybody would want to be represented by the Joker of all freaking characters. But
they
then
did
the
it with
second one you have,
Pennywise too. What is it with social justice and evil clowns?
yeah. Uh, Well, they reveal themselves though, but the second character was a gender swapped fat lesbian Mr. Freeze, and it's just picture the character in your head, and that's exactly how it looks.
I small correction. It wasn't an alternate Mister Freeze. It was his wife, because apparently in this game they thawed Nora out, and she turned out to be a slut.
No, I think that was in the Harley Quinn TV show.
No, they. I watched Arch videos on this. It is supposed to be Nora Freeze.
Ah,
As in,
well,
as insufferable as that is, because it basically turns Heart of Ice from this just brilliant fucking time capsule of a story to he Mr. Freeze gave up everything so that Nora could live again, and she responded by ditching him and becoming a promiscuous lesbian, because apparently that's what the creators of that game thought that Mr. Freeze deserved for standing by his woman when she was in a coma for X number of years.
the proper thing to do if they were ever going to unfreeze Nora Freeze is to one have her be with Victor Freeze and then just have him end his life of crime, or B to basically if you're gonna have him die, then she should basically be in mourning forever.
Yeah, because the love story that was first like the the backstory that everybody knows for Mr. Freeze actually comes from a Batman the Animated Series episode called The Heart of Ice. Um, and it's one of the most moving backstories for a villain character, probably in the history of all of Western literature. And
Yeah.
here we are 30 years later, and this is what an era of postmodern deconstruction and neo-Hegelianism has wrought. I return to my statement. Hegel and his adjoining philosophies is the root of all modern evil.
You can play.
Yep.
Like, what happened to a masculine dude with a hot chick on his arm? I love the idea of Xbox Game Pass, but I swear every time I open it up and look for new games, there's just so many games that look gay now. I refuse to play another cutesy 2D platformer or a game with a cutesy art style by some indie developer anymore. I'm just done with these games. If you want my 100% real thoughts on this, I just think the entire video game industry has gone woke and gay, and almost nothing they are making appeals to me in any way anymore. So this is why I mostly play 20-year-old games on my channel, because they were just better. I was recently reading an insider interview about what went down at Volition Studios with the disastrous Saints Row reboot from an inside source.
Just look at that character design. Does that make you
Uh,
want to
the
play the game at all?
the anti meritocracy thing, and again, I know I know I'm harping on this point, but it is important, and I will stick my flag on this hill. Trust me, my friend. As speaking as a gay person myself, we're not all like that. Please don't let them convince you we're all like that. Um, because gay people, shock, surprise, like men, and therefore a lot of us are attracted to things like machismo and masculinity. I know I am waiting for the day I can go over to Denmark and get myself a 7 foot freaking linebacker of a Nordic bastard, but you know, um,
Also, this character design is ruining the bow tie for everyone.
I am just glad that I can offer contrary representation, because bow ties are, as the 11th Doctor so epically pointed out, cool. And they always will be, no matter how many shitty fucking anti meritocratic art pieces they get shoved into.
This character is not compelling to make me want to play a video game where there's a lot of action. Why would I play a video game that's supposed to be action oriented with one of the characters looks like someone whose ass I could kick in real life?
Yeah, yeah, I think I could even kick this person's ass, and I am disabled and gay, so nah.
This source said that the LGBTQ community within the company was actually pretty small, but they are the loudest and the most annoying, and the company leadership chose to promote these people into key roles. And that's how you get the absolute dumpster fire of a game that was Saints Row 2022. I think what you have at a lot of these game studios is about 80% of the staff is probably just hetero dudes trying to do their job, but they're afraid of speaking up or saying what they actually think. And then you have the LGBTQ folks making decisions about what kind of game to make. And everything just ends up being safe and soft and sensitive because, oh, we can't hurt anybody's feelings. So, of course, you get these shitty dumpster fire video games that nobody wants to play. After reading a lot of insider interviews at these developers, this is my sense of what has been happening. I also feel like there's this kind of unholy alliance right now between games.
And again,
Uh,
trust me, my friend, there is a vast, vast gulf between people who just happen to be gay and are otherwise fucking functional meritocratic members of society and people who are politically LGBTQ. Quite frankly,
yeah,
I am of the opinion, and I'm speaking as a gay person again, that the LGBT movement, such as it is, has set back gay rights, gay acceptance, and gay just, wanting to be a functional member of society by like 20 or 30 years. It will take us another 20 or 30 years after all of this shit stops finally to get back to the place we were in the like late 90s and early 2000s where people just expected gay people to be quote unquote normal and everyone mostly got along with their day. Cuz again, I am among many other things a meritocrat. I want these games to be fun. I want art to be cool. I want things to be epic and badass and awesome and shit. And I don't feel represented by this bullshit either. The only people who do feel represented by it are people who believe in the academic preconception of quote unquote critical queer theory. And yeah, no, in case it hasn't become obvious with my frequently frequently denouncing Hegel and everything associated with Hegelian dialectics, critical theory of any kind can get fucked without lube. Thank you.
so let's take a look at what he has here on the screen. See, Game Award winner, purveyor of shitty woke games, insufferable Kotaku editor who gets dragged on the internet every single day. Now, I don't know this woman's name, but I've definitely seen her picture around. I just can't recall her name off the top of my head.
The games journo, and I stress journo because there's a difference between a journo and a journalist, and I revoke the journalist title from a lot of these fuckers. This has again been a thing ever since Gamergate, and man, does it make me want to gas the games journos.
But also, you could kind of tell just by looking at them. Look, I swear to God, the physiognomy never misses.
Yeah, physiognomy check impossible. Difficulty, like god damn it. It reminds me of that
Journalists.
one Roald Dahl quote from I forget what thing it was from, but that quote that's basically a perfect summary of physiognomy of if you're a nice person, no matter how ugly you are on the outside, that niceness will carry through. Whereas if you're mean, it doesn't matter how beautiful you are because eventually dwelling on evil will make you ugly.
Yeah, definitely fits.
Mm-hmm.
White liberal women at game studios and the LGBTQ community at game studios. And they all seem to be united around one thing. They actually hate gamers. And who are gamers overwhelmingly? Well, heterosexual dudes like us, of course. This recent Reddit thread was written by an actual game developer and made me realize this. It reads headline:
Am I allowed to say this? I kind of hate gamers. I'm a professional game designer and I'm worried that I'm starting to hate gamers. Watching the gaming events on YouTube last month with the chat on was extremely disheartening experience. Every time a character that wasn't a cis-het white man appeared on screen, the chats would fill with messages calling the game woke or complaining about DEI. Every game that wasn't a shooter or a hyper-casual competitive online game garnered zzz and boring comments. I've seen people implying that the MC in Fable trailers is ugly because it's a self-insert of some random level designer working at Playground whom they deemed not fuckable enough.
Let me explain this. Let me explain this to you in terms you can understand, random asshole games journal. The reason why this happens is not because people have any antipathy towards gay characters. It's because the gay characters you write, or the black characters you write, or the female characters you write are insufferable and anti-meritocratic. If you begin with the premise that meritocracy is a harmful delusion, that it is your job to deprogram, and gamers in general are meritocrats, hence the famous meme of "get good, scrub," they will look at your anti-meritocratic screeds and they will call them out, especially when you try to use people of minority statuses as human shields. The reason why, frankly, only cishet characters are in any way likable now is because they're the only characters you don't care about fucking conforming to some ideological preconception. And even when you do, very often, because your own ideological schema is so backwards, you frame a character as the villain for doing things that most people would define as being heroic.
Yeah. And here's the thing: like a lot of gamers have characters who may be gay or who may be black that they really like. I believe the character's name is Zevran from Dragon Age, who is a gay elf. A lot of people liked him because he was a well written character, and it wasn't and his character arc wasn't written around he likes guys. It was written around the fact that he was basically raised in an assassin's guild his whole life, and he was trying to break free from it.
Yeah,
And you also have characters.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you also have characters like Sergeant Johnson from Halo, whose main character wasn't about the fact that he was black; it was about he was a badass Marine, fighting to defend Earth from alien invasion. And people freaking love this character.
And people do love a lot of female characters. Bayonetta, Samus Aran, Princess Peach actually in a lot of games is a playable character, and a lot of people love her.
Zelda, when they announced the new Zelda game where you actually get to play as Zelda for once, a lot of people lost it because they were so excited.
Laura Croft, the list goes on and on and on, because it's not women, and it's not gay people, and it's not black people, and it's not any of these things. It's because your ideological conception, your intersectional feminist, neo-Hegelian preconception of people's identities is an ideological construct of academic woo that A, not reflective of reality, B, is frankly insulting to the very people you claim to be a shield bearer for, and C, by conflating these various identities with this toxic neo-Hegelian gobbledygook, all you're doing is conveying to the average normie that to be gay means to be an insufferable effeminate twink. To be black means you must be in favor of BLM. To be Asian means you must be like this, stereotypical mathlete type character. All you're doing is reinforcing people's innate desire to stereotype, but you're not giving them anything meritocratic to cling to that makes them want to look past the stereotype or have respect for these characters. And as a result, there are actually statistics showing that acceptance of LGBT people IRL is going down, and racial tensions are higher now than they were in the fucking 70s. Because the way to show people that people of various minority statuses are, worthwhile people is to make them interesting, compelling, and badass individuals, not by making them an academic Trojan horse coupled with stereotypes.
I don't know. It's just the internet magnifying negative voices, I guess, doing what it does best. But it's making me real tired of gamers.
So at this point, it seems that games journalists and all of the liberal LGBT mafia that work at game studios actually hate their audience. And this is a comment I keep reading from you guys again and again. I swear they literally hate us. They seem to be dead set on giving their audience exactly what we don't want. How long is your business going to be open if you're dead set on not giving the customer what they want? This is why when skanks like Alyssa Mercante are crying about Kotaku shutting down and losing their jobs, and game studios are going under because they were associated with Sweet Baby Inc., I just laugh. Let them burn. Let all these companies burn who don't know how to give the audience. The wonderful irony in all this is that it's the very games that the woke cancel mob has tried to cancel that seem to do the best.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Hogwarts Legacy thing, people literally bought it in order to piss these people off.
Same thing with Stellar Blade, same thing with Helldivers, same thing with Nikkei, same thing, like the list as ever goes on. And he missed a trick here that I'm going to now highlight. It's because they actually view unironic investment, either intellectual or emotional investment in IP, to be a problem. Because in their worldview, meritocracy is a harmful delusion that people have to be woken out of, and art is only valuable as a socio-political, moral, or thematic means to an end. They don't see the value of internally valid characters or internally consistent logic or world building or mechanics. They only see art as they only see art as a means to an end, and they see any attempt to be meritocratic as enabling the problem. So they go out of their way to mock, belittle, or shun anyone who does believe in things like internal consistency, meritocracy, well-rounded characters, or world building. They don't only just hate you passively because you're a white man or whatever. They hate you passively. They hate you actively because they view the idea of fandom in and of itself as essentially man-children deluding themselves into thinking things actually matter that don't. And they see it as their moral duty to show, quote unquote, these people how childish and stupid they're being by insisting that art is only ever an ideological, moral, or socio-political means to an end.
Yeah. They also don't appear to care about truth, and they are willing to basically destroy their entire company to, stand by their agenda. For example, I don't know if you've been, reading about it, but the situation with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed Shadows, where they're basically rewriting history and insulting an entire nation by centering around a black historical figure from Japan, a minor historical figure, but they're basing the entire game around it, which makes no sense because in previous Assassin's Creed titles, they would always make up a fictional character and then just place them in that era and have them interact with that real world historical figures. But for some reason, for Assassin's Creed Shadows that is set in Japan, they make the main character not a Japanese person, but a black guy who was historically a retainer of a Japanese lord named Yasuke. But here's the thing: he was such a minor figure, and so little was known about him that it makes literally no sense for him to be the main character of the game. And also, again, it breaks the pattern of them creating fictional characters to place in these worlds.
Well,
And not only that, but I believe they also made him gay, a gay black samurai in feudal Japan cutting down Japanese people.
that
But
totally
they
wouldn't have gotten a katana through his heart or anything the second someone realized that, but oh well.
but they also made a secondary protagonist, which is a female Japanese ninja. Why they couldn't just make a um, a male ninja, or maybe make a pair of Japanese ninjas, literally makes no sense to me. And
Oh,
they are twisting themselves into a freaking knot and destroying their company and reputation, all trying to defend this absolute dumpster fire of a historical inaccuracy.
well, that's another thing. Usually, when they would set um, a game in a place or in a time, it would be so that they can touch on that culture or that time period or the flavor of that era. Whereas now, rather than having the cast of a game set in feudal Japan be Japanese and therefore be exemplars of the Japanese culture, they belittle Japan so much that they're like, well, clearly there's nothing interesting about your particular Asian culture, Japan. So we'll just stick a black gay character and a female character right in smack the middle of it, even though that doesn't fit the pattern of cultural representation or unique flavored in storytelling that we've kept literally since game one. But never mind. No
Also,
wonder it almost caused an international incident.
they could have just set an Assassin's Creed game in Africa. Like, there was plenty of historical context and in-game lore that they could have used to make a title. They just decided to just screw over the Japanese for some reason.
And here's another idea. If they wanted to have Yasuke in the game as a playable character, why isn't his counterpart the lord he actually served historically? Like if we
Oh, he
know
was dead.
in the game,
Yeah, like in the period that they're trying to set the game is, I can only assume that it's after the point where Oda Nobunaga had died.
but then why is Yasuke still there? I'm confused. Like,
Like, this is already a massive historical clusterfuck. Let's not try to untangle the knot for Ubisoft.
well, but it's just I'm just saying, if you wanted Yasuke in the game or something like Yasuke in the game, if you're so dead set on basing this character on the history we have of them, then make the main character of the game the lord he served, and then he can be a supporting character. And if you wanted to make him playable, that's fine too. But um,
I
like
think
that
I think
that
there's
would
value.
probably have made Japan not nearly as offended as they currently now are, basically pulling what Egypt pulled when they did the Black Cleopatra thing and going, you have insulted our entire culture. Now fuck off.
Yeah, personally, I think they should have just made it a titular Japanese character, and I agree. Like, if they were going to include Yasuke in the game, they should have just have him been a side character. Like, maybe have like him recruit them to like your cause. Maybe they could have like a couple of quests where you fight alongside him or whatever. But he should not
Yeah,
have
like
been the
mini
main
games
character.
where he's playable or something. Yeah,
Yeah, like that was just freaking awful.
and it's
But
entirely out of the universe of Assassin's Creed. Anyway, moving forward.
but yeah, just we are going to move forward with just one final thing to just prove how much Ubisoft fucked up on this. They put on display a katana, which they said was based on historical evidence what Yasuke's katana would have looked like. Yeah, turns out that
Oh
the sword
dear.
they put on display was not Yasuke's katana. It was the Sandai Katetsu, one of Roronoa's swords from One Piece.
They. Oh my
They
god.
literally ripped off one of the swords from One Piece,
It
like one one for one.
isn't um isn't like historical accuracy and actual historical representation one of Assassin's Creed's biggest selling points?
Well, it may have been at one point though, but clearly not anymore.
But like now I heard this story secondhand, so it might not be true. But I had heard that when the Notre Dame fire happened a couple of years ago, the people tasked with reconstructing it actually were able to use maps and models from the Assassin's Creed game set in France to like model the cathedral back in place.
Yep, I had heard that too, but very clearly Ubisoft has decided to sacrifice historical accuracy on the altar of ideology.
Well, the thing is, like, the historical accuracy actually makes the world building stronger because it requires less suspension of disbelief and actually lends some three dimensionality to the world building they do have. Again, fucking anti meritocratic bullshit brought to us by the intersectional feminism that is the handmaiden to neo Hegelian postmodern deconstructionalism and Frankfurt School bullshit.
Let's get back to it.
Remember Hogwarts Legacy? Yeah, men who dress in women's clothes tried to get it canceled. Instead, the game sold 25 million copies. Oops. Remember Elden Ring? Remember how the woke mob tried to accuse FromSoft games of having, quote, problematic depictions of women? Oops. Sold 25 million copies. At this point, making an offensive game seems to guarantee that game's success. We could talk about Stellar Blade, pissing off all of the liberal progressives, and yet everybody went out and bought it. Okay, so in the rest of this video, I want to give you 4 examples of a game or game series going from masculine to feminine or gay, and it basically either killed or ruined the franchise. Number 1, Ubisoft and Red Storm Entertainment. So Red Storm Entertainment was a video game company founded by the legendary Tom Clancy to make Tom Clancy video.
Yeah, I'm going to step out and grab something to drink real quick. I'm just going to let this play for a sec.
Okay.
Games. He sold the company to Ubisoft in the year 2000, and Ubisoft in the 2000s actually had some balls and made some of the manliest games you've ever seen. There were the Splinter Cell games, the Ghost Recon games, the Rainbow Six games, and the Far Cry games. All of these games pretty much feature exclusively men, and these IPs in the 2000s had so much testosterone, just a single glance from a woman in their direction would get her pregnant. I mean, motherfucking Sam Fisher, come on. The dude is the ultimate Giga Chad. Scott Mitchell in Ghost Recon. Now, you pick your own character in Far Cry 2, but it's definitely a manly game that will put hair on your chest. So what is Red Storm Entertainment up to today? Well, I recently saw that Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland is being led by a man who dresses in women's clothes in his free time. Now, look, I don't give a shit if you want to identify as a dragon and go around laying magic eggs, but can we agree that the least masculine thing on earth you can do is dress in women's clothes? Tom Clancy would be rolling over in his grave right now if he knew the absolute disaster that Red Storm Entertainment had become. Number 2.
All right, that was the talk about Red Storm. And
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, you go, you go.
I just wanted to point out a little bit further back. He was saying that games that are offensive or games that don't play by the social justice rules always sell. I want to point out that that's always how gaming has worked. It's not something that's unique to social justice. I remember back in the day, and I'm pretty sure most gamers will remember back in the day when the bane of gaming was Jack Thompson because of his like traditionalist values bullshit and impinging that upon games. I think it's a more universal thing than that. I think it's a people don't like lecturing, they don't like moralism, and they don't like something they go to for entertainment or indulgence purposes to suddenly be moralistic and authoritarian or censored. I think I think it's fascinating that so many left-wing people who believe in social justice now are surprised that there's pushback against them because a lot of them were around and criticized people like Jack Thompson when he was doing his thing. And one of the frustrating things about the modern day left that I, as a relatively left-leaning person, find frustrating is they don't seem to realize that it wasn't a right versus left is better thing that made people like Jack Thompson insufferable. It was anyone who uses games or entertainment as a means to lecture people and moralize at them and be authoritarian and purity spiral about them is going to be pushed back against by people who are populist, libertarian, and looking for indulgence from their entertainment. Entertainment always has the vector of wanting to be indulgent to a large degree, and therefore anything that comes off as moralistic and authoritarian is going to get pushed back, whether it's right or left. Because the internet is generally a we don't give a fuck, we want to be indulgent and be entertained enterprise. Anyway, moving forward, unless you had a thing.
Wolfenstein. So I was recently playing Wolfenstein The New Order for the first time, which came out in 2014. And I have to say, of all the games I was sure were going to avoid woke Western progressivism, this game was pretty high up there. The first 3 entries of the reboot were all fantastic. They had the badass BJ Blazkowicz, an absolute unit, as the main character, ripping apart entire armies of Nazis with the sexy and smart Anya as his arm candy and wife. Machine Game's first 3 Wolfenstein entries, which came out in 2014, 2015, and 2017, are all great. They have normal men and women doing normal shit in them. Awesome. But of course, the woke mob had to get involved somehow. So you have a beloved series with a beloved, tough, male, manly main character. Do you suppose it's a good idea to kill off that guy and replace him with cringy girl boss characters? Wolfenstein Youngblood came out in 2019, and it's an absolute tone-deaf disaster. So many modern video games, I find myself asking, who wanted this? Who asked for this? I often ask the same thing of the new Star Wars shows by Kathleen Kennedy as well. The Wolfenstein reboot had the perfect synergy of story and gameplay. You are BJ Blazkowicz, unleashing his rage on the Nazis for killing everyone he loved. You see this come across in his brutal assassinations, like sticking a rusty pipe through the eye socket of an SS Waffen commander. But the setup to Wolfenstein Youngblood is incredibly cringe. In it, you play as BJ's daughter.
Yeah, like I played the Wolfenstein games, not the one where you have the 2 girls in it, because I just knew from looking at it. I just freaking knew what it was going to be, and I stayed far away from it.
Yeah, it's go ahead.
It's just every single time. Like, it's almost like they wait for these franchises to gain enough renown and success and trust in their fan base before they start to corrupt it with their bullshit. And the thing is, at this point, it's happened so many times that the fans know. So the moment that people get a whiff of this thing, they immediately run in the other direction.
Yeah, I can explain that at least a little bit. The reason why they go after things at the peak of their popularity is because of that thing I was talking about earlier, with seeing art as only a means to a moral, social, or political end. Because they believe that, because they view art as a ideological platform rather than an end in itself, they have to go after the biggest, most well-known IPs, because that way when they switch them over, it doesn't actually work this way, but this is how they think it's supposed to work. That way when they switch it over, they can use that big platform as a means to push their particular ideological conception of shit. The problem, of course, is one of the pillars of their ideology is that meritocracy is a harmful delusion that must be deprogrammed from people. So they deliberately go out of their way to be as anti-meritocratic, anti-artistic, anti-aesthetic as possible. And then they get surprised when you remove all the meritocracy from a thing or all the value from a thing, people value it less. They think that people becoming fond of IPs is essentially a socially constructed coincidence, and that there's no actual thing that draws people towards things. And so they get surprised when, wait, you mean people actually care about this unironically as something other than a means to an end? What losers! We should mock them and deride them and call them man babies for actually unironically caring about shit. Don't they know my academic conception is that all art is a means to an end? Derp.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons why they also do it is that these people want to be genuine creators. The problem is that their ideas suck, and they know that they would never get approved on their own. So they try and twist and break and transmogrify an existing property into what they wanted to create all along. And the thing is, we can see the broken, mangled corpse underneath the skin suit, and so it inevitably ends up failing. And I think one of the things we can look at for this is the Witcher TV show, which was just an absolute bastardization of the video games and the books. Which Henry Cavill, who played Geralt himself, admitted that he had to fight tooth and nail to try and get things to align with the books, to try and get things to align, with the games and the source material. Because the person who was in charge of creating it, the showrunner, she had no interest in making things anything like the book. She despised the book. I don't think she even read them. And what she wanted to do was make a show like I believe they gave her a spin-off to do whatever she wanted with called I believe it was called Witcher Blood Origins,
Yeah.
which turned out to be awful and fucking tanked. And then she had the audacity to try and push Henry Cavill out, the only reason people were even watching that show. And now they're trying to replace him with another actor. It's not going to work because Cavill fucking carried that entire show, and with him gone, she's not going to have anybody to try and push back on her bullshit ideas. And it's just going to sink even further.
Well, that's the thing. To any reasonable human being, Henry Cavill is based. But in their moral conception, which in Hollywood is the norm, fandom fandom makes you a naive man baby at best or an actual toxic fascist at worst. And so they see his attempt to make things loyal to the fan base, loyal to the IP, as he's being deliberately difficult and being a moron. When in actuality, it's the art is only ever a means to an end attitude that makes people a moron. They're so caught up in their own ideological bubble that they actually viewing art as a means to an end and as an academic exercise in themes is not only the norm but what you're supposed to do. And anyone who tries to see things as valuable unironically for their own sake or as an exercise in consistent world building as first stupid then evil. And furthermore, I disagree with you slightly. I don't think these people actually want to create, or at least not after they get out of art school. I think they may have at one point wanted to create something, but because they went to, modern day liberal art schools, they got taught the neo-Hegelian everything is a means to an end uh, worldview. Everything is about the authorial intention, and everything is about the themes, and everything is about the non-diegetic bullshit, rather than caring about things unironically for their own sake. And so they don't actually want to create because they don't actually value the idea of creation in and of itself. Again, they see IPs as platforms, and they assume that people are drawn to them basically by either socio-political norms or by sheer coincidence. And so in their minds, it makes perfect sense that you can overhaul everything about an IP and people should still mindlessly consume it because they assume people are already tabula rasa. They don't think there is any meritocratic or value-based reason why people are drawn to things. So they can change everything around and assume that people are just going to mindlessly accept it. And if you don't mindlessly accept it, it's only because you're a man baby who still believes in meritocracy as if you're a 30-year-old who believes in the tooth fairy.
You play?
Yeah.
And they're honestly nothing like him. The first time you kill somebody, they don't really want to do it. And when they finally kill the guy, they have to have lattes and talk about it afterwards. Youngblood is a perfect example of how a cutscene can go so wrong in a game. BJ's setup is perfect and explains to you why you're doing the actions you're doing. BJ's daughters, however, are acting like they're in an episode of Big Bang Theory the whole time, but oh yeah, they just happen to be killing Nazis and haha, isn't this so funny? It's tonally all over the place and just so full of cringy and awful cinematics, which is ironic because the cinematics in the first 3 games were like so good and short, and they got to the point and they were really emotional and impactful. Example number 3, Gears of War. For a full explanation of how the woke mob girl-bossed Gears of War, see my video on that game, but I'll keep this short. The first 3 Gears games are an incredible trilogy focusing on the bonds and brotherhood between men. They are incredibly masculine games, focusing on duty and sacrifice and military orders, and I know some of you hate this, but for 10,000 years, it's only been men fighting wars. Sorry. The first 3 games focus on Marcus, Dom, Cole, and Baird and tell a masculine story of brotherhood. Well, the progressive woke mob somehow got to Gears of War, and Gears 4 and 5 are about sisterhood, motherhood, being a traitor, and what it feels like to be a woman. They introduced the character of Kate Diaz, who I don't think anybody gives a single fuck about. What they should have done is put Kate in a spin-off game, not a mainline Gears entry. But here's the problem, of course, nobody would have bought it. So unfortunately, Gears 4 and 5 are basically girl boss, feminist Gears of War, and any masculine story about men is put on the back burner. Of course, the games include Baird and Marcus in them, but they're really on the back burner, and Gears is now about Kate Diaz, who I've never talked to a Gears fan even cares about. Moving on, example number 4, the Saints Row.
I mean, just to stop there, I mean, I can completely buy why a video game series that features assault rifles with chainsaw bayonets is not focused on a female audience.
Yeah, because not only do, men vibe with that more, but women don't vibe with that at all, usually, unless there's a romance element, in which case, if you make the male character into a body stripper, you might be able to get the female gaze going. I will say though, I've been noticing little ticks here and there throughout this video. I do think this guy might have a bit of a 2-dimensional understanding of masculinity, because his definition of masculinity seems to be kind of the one-dimensional hoorah military character. I'm not saying that's the only definition he's using, but I have noticed that he hyperfixate on militarism as masculinity more than he probably should.
I think it could be that's because those are the type of games that he likes, and those are the type of games that he sees being destroyed.
Right, and that's fair, I guess. It's just, it is also worth noting that there are characters who are plenty masculine and not really hoorah military guys. Like again, Mario is a middle-aged fat plumber. Link is a quasi-elven archer dude. So there, you can still be masculine without being butch, I guess is the word I'm going to land on there.
Yeah.
Reboot. Saints Row spent 10 years building up characters and building up a very distinctive and edgy and male sense of humor. It's the kind of stuff you and the guys would laugh at. Some of the recurring characters in Saints Row are Johnny Gat, Julius, Aisha, Shondi, and several others. In these games, the men are men and the women are women. Johnny is edgy and hilarious and always has a hot chick on his arm. The humor is crude and hilarious, and the Saints are always getting into trouble. So what went wrong with the reboot? Well, the woke 2022 reboot thought it was a good idea to kill off every single character from the old Saints Row games, and I guess they thought we would be cool with that? But don't worry, all of the beloved characters you've come to know and love have been replaced with tokenistic characters from a literal seminar on diversity. You've got the gay Asian man, the girl boss lesbian, another girl boss lesbian, and the gay black guy. The LGBTQ mafia didn't just kill Saints Row, they crucified it on a rainbow flag. And this is what you get, guys. This is what you fuckers get for supporting these people. They turn out shitty games that aren't funny, that aren't cool, that aren't masculine. So stop hiring these people. Game developers need to stop putting gay stuff.
Yeah, hanging your gun on a coat rack is one, dangerous, and two, fucking cringe.
Yeah. I want to zero in on something he said because I think it's a little closer to the point than he's been getting. Tokenism is very much the issue because these aren't well-rounded characters with their own individual personalities or their own talents and skills and sense of like seriousness. They are just tokens, and that is very much the issue. It's one of the reasons why I, as a gay person, can't vibe with most of the LGBT bullshit. One, because I know the academic bullshit that results in the LGBT mafia, as he puts it, and two, because what fucking gay man worth his balls would feel represented by these people? It's again the idea that there are no tops, there are no masculine gay people, there are no gay people with like skills of any particular substance. You're either the stereotypical butch giga chad straight guy or you're big gay Al from South Park. And yet, no, if you want me to actually feel represented by these game developers, try making your characters likable, interesting, engaging, and meritocratic, and also gay, or also black, or also whatever the fuck else. Like, you can make gay characters who people actually like Hulkling and Wiccan from Marvel, Midnighter and Apollo, Shatterstar and his, or is it Shatterstar, or is it fucking the Canadian dude? Forget the.
I think it was Shatterstar and Longshot.
Yeah. But yeah, you can make gay characters people will give a fuck about organically if you make them non-insufferable, likable, interesting, cool, and meritocratic. Because yes, the rule of cool is definitely a thing. And if you really want people to have some sort of positive affinity for gay people, like you say you do, how about give me some gay characters that I can actually feel meaningfully represented by? Because they're cool, interesting, well-developed characters. Because it's not just that they're gay, it's that they're as stereotypically and two-dimensionally gay as possible that makes it the problem. And it's explicitly anti-meritocratic and anti-aesthetic also, usually. Because speaking of things that I would really like gay characters in games to actually have, can I have a gay character who I could actually consider eye candy, please? Because they're all these malformed physiognomy check failing twats who I want to slap every time they open their mouths in modern day games. And even as a gay person who does occasionally go to content for like eye candy or a romance angle in the same way straight dudes do for female characters, I have not seen any eye candy that I would define as eye candy in any of these gay characters. Not only are they insufferable characters who no one will want to be around because of their personality, they are the kinds of people who die alone because they're not attractive enough to actually get a significant other, be it a straight one or a gay one. They're gay fucking middle management incels, basically.
Yeah, like one of the most egregious examples of this I can think of in recent games was Astarion in Baldur's Gate 3. Like, this person was the most flamboyant, stereotypical gay character you could possibly imagine. Like, at some point, I was looking for a setting to see if I could turn this shit down because, like, it was to the point of ridiculousness.
Also, the stereotypical lispy gay accent is fucking nails on the chalkboard of my brain. Can we stop making characters? I'm not saying you can't have any characters with that, because obviously somebody has to be the bottom as well, or at least verse. But like, do they all have to have the stereotypical lisp? Do they really? Can we not get some gay characters with actual, like, decent, booming, like Morgan Freeman style voices?
All right, playing the
Yep.
last little bit of the video.
Yep.
In games, and they need to fire every liberal white woman if they want us to ever buy a game again. Because I'm serious, we are done with this shit. We're not buying these games. Like, Phil Spencer is out here complaining about how people aren't spending as much money on games anymore. I guarantee if you give us hetero dudes hot chicks in games again and manly men, you will see sales go through the roof. Bring back the glory days of video games. I have this theory that in a few years, we're going to see a turn back to the golden era of video games, and people are going to start buying games again. I recently saw this crazy chart from 2023 that basically showed that people are only playing old games these days. Nobody wants to play anything that's new out right now because it's all woke and it all sucks so bad. So anyway, guys, let's all hope there's a return of masculine characters in games again at some point that we can relate to. All right, I'm out.
Yeah, and again, speaking as a gay person, I agree with him. You can have your gay characters occasionally and so on, but they do actually need to be the kind of people that guys like me would lust over, or at the very least would find interesting, regardless of their sexuality. Like, just because a character's gay doesn't mean they have to be shit. They can be both gay and cool, or gay and masculine. In fact, given, the fact that gay men are attracted to men generally, it would probably help your sales among the gay community, if nothing else, if some of these characters were masculine, because, well, yes, there are tops who are attracted to bottoms and everything. The inverse is also true. Somebody has to be the goddamn top. And I don't see any gay characters in the modern age that have quote unquote top energy. Seriously. Give if you really want to please the gay audience, one, romance subplots are a thing. Two, characters that we can actually find relatable, interesting, engaging, or failing that, hot. Because whether you're gay or straight, this is one of the most deliberately anti-aesthetic periods in gaming history. I want my hetero friends to have the, cheesecake female ass shots and so on, and I, as a gay man, wouldn't mind seeing some jacked as shit gay dudes who actually have skills and merits to speak of, and aren't a bunch of insufferable flag-waving twinks. That's the other thing. This shit isn't even popular among the audiences it's claiming to want to pander to. I see characters like that, and I just I see characters like that, and my eyes glaze over, because it's like, oh god, this is what they think of me again. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but I just want to say that I would love for the game industry to turn around, but I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of this shit isn't going to end until these companies are in dire straits. And I feel like there's a lot of shit that's already been greenlit that we're going to have to freaking suffer through before things start to turn around. Like, in one instance of something that genuinely pissed me off, there's an upcoming HC2D remake for Dragon Quest III, a game that basically redefined Japanese RPGs to this day. It's one of the greatest RPGs of all time. And do you know what they did to it, Dalton?
What did they do?
Now, in the game, you can choose a male or female hero. But they removed the words male and female and replaced it with body type A and B again. In a classic freaking JRPG. Fucking hell. And then they removed, because this game has companions that have classes of their own, they removed the gendered names for the classes. Like, for example, if you have like a wizard, you could have like a wizard for a man and a witch if it's a woman, and so they removed that. So I'm just like saying these were completely unnecessary changes, you cocksuckers.
Damn
Like
it.
for the love of God, can we just leave the treasured classics a fucking alone?
No, they can't. They have to uh, capture them, subvert them, and then weaponize them. It's all they know how to do. It's all they teach them in modern day art schools these days. It's the art is never valuable for its own sake, and the characters in art are never valuable for their own sake. We must weaponize them because my meta narratives, my non-diegetic themes, my socio-political and moral uh, scapegoats slash platforms. They literally for they literally either never had or were like brainwashed out of the idea that art should be valuable for its own sake, have consistent rules, and likable, engaging, or interesting characters. They don't know how to do that anymore. Whether they had it and lost it in art school, or whether they never had it to begin with, and this is the only way they know how to engage with art. It's absolutely a fucking purity spiral, which explains why every art style now is some of the most anti-aesthetic, anti-meritocratic shit you can get a hold of. They deliberately make things ugly on purpose because they think beauty standards are a harmful social construct.
You any final words?
Just make gaming meritocratic again, and if you insist on representation, that doesn't preclude the fact that you have to make a character likable, interesting, attractive, maybe, and like with skills and merits that people can actually empathize with and relate to. Please.
Yeah. Try to remember that you're actually a business and that you don't create games to, you know, satisfy yourself. Like if you just want to make a game in your garage and sell it to nobody, go ahead and freaking do that. But this is a company that has a lot that have a lot of history. They have, franchises that people are heavily invested in. Like, just stop trying to make shit about you and just give the people more of what they want. And to actually listen to them when they have valid fucking concerns and get your head out of your ass.
Given how much these people generally hate capitalism, I honestly wonder if they actually consider it a good thing when they inevitably fail. Like obviously they want to be praised for it to begin with, but once they realize they can't be, I wonder if their anti-capitalist streak pops up and goes, "Well, at least I'm destroying capitalism from the inside, herder. Bring on the revolution, derp."
Yeah, I also don't understand why they don't just have AI do the initial character designs and then just have somebody make it into a 3D model.
Give it 10 years, I'm sure we will get there. 10 years or less. It's
Uh,
better the AI than the games journal ideologues, because at least I when the AI fails, we know it only failed because of how it was programmed. Whereas when these people fail, it's very often out of deliberate spite for their audience and any sense of meritocracy.
Everybody, I've been Mystery.
I have been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys.
Goodbye, everybody.